Hey, Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I'm going to give all glory, all honor, all praises to Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, to the hopeful elect of Israel. This is your brother Shemash One. Come back with another lesson. And this lesson is regarding the mystery of the Gentiles, right? Because, Yahweh, he purposely put a stumbling block, on people to stumble. When you see people, when they see words like Gentiles, aliens, strangers, they just come to this conclusion that that's referring to the other nations. So now it depends on the context. What it's talking about. Who these strangers are, who these Gentiles are. So we must understand the context in order to understand the narrative. Okay. So here, let's go to Ephesians 3, and I'm going to start at verse 9. It says, "And to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery," right? Which from the beginning of the world have been hid in Yahweh, who created all things by Mashiach Yahushua. 10, it says, "To the intent that now, unto the principles and powers in heavenly places might be known by the church the manifold wisdom of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushua." So we're going to see, if Yahweh say the same, he's going to, give us the sense of who these Gentiles, these strangers, and these aliens are, right? So let's go over to Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel 37, because this is one that trips people up, right? In terms of, the assumption that these strangers or Gentiles are going to be the other nations. Right, so this is Ezekiel 47 from the top. It says, "Afterward he brought me again into the door of the house, and behold, waters issue out from under the threshold of the house eastward, for the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from the right side of the house at the south side of the altar." So we need to understand, what this water is, that's coming from this house, right? Okay, and we're going to get it. Let's go over to Revelation chapter 22. Let us know what this water is. Let's go to Psalms 22 and 1. It says, "And he showed me a pure river of water of life." So we see that this is the water of life here. Mashiach is going to bring this. He's going to talk about that. If you haven't said the same, a little later, we're going to bring that out. "Clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of Yahweh and of the Lamb." So we see that house that Ezekiel 47 is referring to is the throne of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushua. Okay. So now let's see something. Let's go to John chapter 4. Because Mashiach Yahushua is going to illustrate that, right? Let's go to John 4, and we're going to get verses 10 and 14, right? This is red letter. All right, so this is John 4:10. It says, "Yahushua answered and said unto her, If thou knowest the gift of Yahweh, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water." So that's the same living waters coming from the throne of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushua. 14, it says, "But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life." So we see this is the living water that Mashiach is talking about, right? So this is what Ezekiel is referring to in Ezekiel 47 from the top. Let's go back over there to Ezekiel 47, all right? And we're going to pick it up in verse 2, okay? So we're going to see something here, all right? So verse 2, it says, "Then brought me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me about the way without unto the utter gate, by the way that looketh eastward. And behold, there ran out waters on the right side." Right side, right? It says, "And when the man that had the line in his hand went forth eastward and measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the ankles. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters, and the water was to the knees. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through, and the waters were to the loins. Afterward he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over. We're going to see that a little later. In Second Esdras, it says, for the waters were risen, waters to swim in, and a river that could not be passed over. Okay. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Then he brought me and caused me to return to the brink of the river. Okay. So now, Esdras talks about this. All right. So let's go with the second Esdras and see what this river is. Can't pass it. You know what I'm saying? It's so deep, you know, right? Let's see what it's talking about. Let's go to second Esdras, chapter 7. And we're going to pick it up at verse 3 and see what this is talking about, what Ezekiel was talking about, or the man with the measuring line in Ezekiel 47. All right. Ezekiel, it's like second Ezra 7 and 3 that says, and I said, speak on, my power. Then said he unto me, the sea, that's the water we saw, is set in a wide place, that it might be deep and great. That's that great water that nobody could pass, right? In Ezekiel 47 it says, but put the case, the entrance were narrow and like a river. Who then could go into the sea to look upon it and to rule it? If he went not through the narrow, how could he come into the broad? There is also another thing. A city is builded and set upon a broad field, and is full of all good things. That's the kingdom. The entrance thereof is narrow, and is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand, and on the left hand deep water. It's a deep water, right? It says, and one only path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once. Now it says, if this city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, hint, hint, we'll see that inheritance later. If he never shall pass the dangerous set before him, how shall he receive this inheritance? And I said, it is so, Lord. Then said he unto me, even so also is Israel's portion. So we're going to see, we see that this portion of this inheritance is for Israel and Israel only. That's our portion, all right, according to this of the scripture, okay? So now we see that what the man was measuring in Ezekiel chapter 47 is talking about the kingdom, right? You know, the water ankles and the, you know, can't pass it. It came to the ankles and then to the loins and, you know, so forth and so on. So we understand that concept, okay? Now let's go back over. Now remember the river we saw earlier, right? In 2nd Ezra chapter 7, right? That river, right? Let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 47 and 7. It says, now when I had returned, behold, at the brink of the river were very many trees on the one side and on the other. What are these trees? I think Mashak is going to tell us what these trees are, right? Let's go to Mark 8, I think it is. These many trees on the side of the river, okay, that can't be passed, right? So it's going to be Mark 22 and 23. This is red letter, right? What these trees are. It says, and he came to Bethesda, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit in his eyes, he put his hand upon him. He asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees. So we see that these trees on the side of the river are men, are Israelites, okay? So it's going to be the children of Israel. We're going to see it a little later. Also, we're going to prove that point that these trees are going to be men on the side of that river, okay? Right? So let's go back over to Ezekiel chapter 47. And we're going to start at verse 8. Ezekiel 47 and 8. Let's get the context. Ezekiel 47 and 8. All right. Here it is. Ezekiel 47 and 8. Right? It says, Then said he unto me, These waters issue out toward the east country and go down into the desert and go into the sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the water shall be healed. We're going to see this healing aspect of these waters a little later, right? Now it says, And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the water shall come, shall live, and there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. 10, it says, And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from En-gedi even into En-gedi. They shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kind, as the fish of the great sea, exceeding many. Right? So now we need to see, what these fish are, right? Who these fishermen are, and what they're going to catch in their nets. And so Mashiach gave us an example of that in Mark chapter 1. Let's go to Mark 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse 16, right? This is the mystery of the Gentiles, right? The strangers and the aliens. That Yahweh purposely put a stumbling block that people wouldn't understand this, okay? So we must go through the precepts to get the spiritual understanding of what it's referring to. Let's go to Mark 1 and see who these fishers are, and these nets and all of this. What this is symbolizing. So let's go to Mark 16 and 1. It says, Now as he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, his brother, casting a net. That's that net we saw earlier, into the sea, right? For they were fishers. But watch this though, what Mashiach is going to explain to them in 17. And Mashiach said unto them, Come ye after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. So we see, that those fish that's referring to, and those nets, Akim, Akawath, are referring to the children of Israel, being fishers of the children of Israel, okay? So now let's go back to Ezekiel 47 and 12. It says, And by the river upon the bank thereof, and we saw that earlier, right? It says, On this side and on that side shall grow all trees, right, for meat, whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months. All right. What is this referring to? Okay. These trees in this context, let's see what it's referring to. Okay. Because we saw words like trees, meat, leaf fading, fruit, and then we saw medicine. Okay. All right. Let's get the bottom of that Ezekiel 47:12. It said, let's just get the whole thing. Ezekiel 47:12. It says, And by the river upon the banks thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaves shall not wither, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months. Because their waters they they issued out of the sanctuary, right? And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. Okay, so now what is it? What and who is Ezekiel quoting here? Okay, we're going to see a couple of places for these leaves, medicine, meat. You know what I'm saying? The good fruit. Let's go back over to Revelation chapter 22. We're going to pick up verse 2. It says, in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, remember the river we just read in Ezekiel? It says, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruit, that's the 12 tribes of Israel, and yield her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. What nations? Us, the 12 tribes of Israel. That's what that's talking about, okay? All right, so this is what, those leaves are for. The water and just that whole healing aspect, medicine, okay? Also, let's quote it over in Psalms. David quotes this. Let's go to Psalms chapter 1, right? These trees, this water for healing, all these good things. So this is Psalms 1 and 1. It says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of Yahweh, and in his law doeth he meditate day and night. Here it is. And he shall be like a tree. Remember that Mashach saw the man when he healed the man who was blind. He saw people as trees. Here it is right here. Verse 3, Psalms 1 and 3, it says, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. We just saw that. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. So we see that the precepts are all adding up, with the leaf, the river, the fruit, all those different aspects. The medicine, is the refurbishing of Israel, okay, according to Scripture. Okay, so let's go back over to Ezekiel 47. Let's go back over. So we see this mystery is talking about Israel. We're going to keep proving it. If Yahweh say the same, these Gentiles, strangers, we're going to see it. These are Israelites, okay? All right? We're going to keep proving it if Yahweh say the same, okay? Let's pick this thing up at Ezekiel 47:13. Ezekiel 47:13. We're going to get verses 13, 14. It says, thus says Yahweh power, this shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit Israel, inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel, right? This is inheritance is only for us, not for the other nations. It says, Joseph shall have 2 portions, and ye shall inherit it, one as well as another, concerning the which I lift up my hand to give it unto your fathers. And this land shall fall unto you for an inheritance. So we're talking about this land. What is this? This is the kingdom of Yahweh Ba'asham and Yahweh Shai. So we see that this inheritance is only for Israel. So now let's go to the edition of Esther here. Let's go to the edition of Esther, and I'm gonna get edition of Esther chapter 1. We're gonna start at verse 6. It says, and my nation is this Israel, which cried to Yahweh, and were saved. For Yahweh hath saved his people. Yahweh is saving Israel. He's not saving any other nations like that. For eternal existence. And Yahweh hath delivered us from all those evils. And Yahweh hath wrought signs and great wonders, which have not been done among the Gentiles. Now I'm going to see what these Gentiles are. I'm just going to tell you what it is. In verse 7 it says, therefore have he made 2 lots, one for the people of Yahweh, and another for all the Gentiles. So we see, that there's a difference between us and the other nations, those Gentiles, those strangers, those aliens in context. Now remember, it has to be in context, because remember, I'm saying in the book of Hosea, when Yahweh, dismissed the northern tribes, they were not his people. But then again, Yahweh said they're going to be my people again. So we have to understand the context and the narrative when we're reading these scriptures, okay? Verse 8, it says, and these two lots came at the hour and time and day of judgment before Yahweh among all nations. Now it says, so Yahweh remembered his people and justified his inheritance. So we see that this inheritance belongs to Israel. Israel is Yahweh's portion, okay? All right? So let's go back over to Ezekiel. Let's get Ezekiel chapter 48 from the top, okay? It says, Ezekiel 48, 1, it says, now these are the names of the tribes, right? So these are all the tribes of Israel right here, okay? When you read all the way from verse 1 all the way down, we're going to go to verse 29, right? We're going to see, these 12 tribes and so what's going to be given to them, right? At the end of all this. So we see in verse 1, now these are the tribes, right? All 12 tribes is going to give you that, right? From verse 1 through 28. Then we get to verse 29. It says, this is the land which ye shall divide by lot unto the tribes of Israel for an inheritance. And these are their portions, saith Yahweh. So we see that these portions, this inheritance is only for Israel. It's not for the other nations. Not even close, okay? So now, let's go back over to Ezekiel 47. All praises to Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai. So we see the context is going to flow in righteousness and give us the understanding of who these strangers are when we get to it. So let's go to Ezekiel 47, 21, 22. Because this is the stumbling block. Remember the mystery we read about earlier? Okay? Before the world was even started, Yahweh said, I'm going to stumble them out. So this is Ezekiel 47, 21. It says, so shall ye divide this land unto you according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? It says, and it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. This is a stumbling block right here. So now, what is Ezekiel quoting? Right? First of all, let's see who these strangers are, right? Let's go to the blue letter and get these strangers and see who they are. Okay, here it is right here.
Strong's H 1616. Guard.
Okay, so we see that these strangers.
Just below that, Gared.
Con. So we see that these strangers in this context, which is Gar, the H16 is going to be Israelite strangers here, right? Who has a right to the inheritance, okay? They have a right to the inheritance. When you go check it out in the blue letter there, okay? So now we're going to see who Ezekiel is quoting there. And at Ezekiel 21, 22, we're going to see who he's quoting, okay? All right, let's go to Exodus chapter 12 and see what Ezekiel is quoting here. Let's go to the law. Exodus 12, we're going to start at 43. Right? Okay. Right. So now this is the rights of the Passover. It says, Exodus 12:43 says, and Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. See, there shall no stranger eat of it. Wait a minute, hold on. No stranger eat of it. Now let's see who this stranger is. That's why we have to always understand the context right? What we're talking about, what the narrative is, before we just make these assumptions, who we think these people are. So these strangers that are going to be totally different. Here they go right here.
Strong's H 5236. Nechar. Nechar.
So we see that these are different strangers according to the strangers we read earlier. And Gar, which is H16:16. So, Yahweh's not the author of confusion. We have to understand these precepts. Now, let's go back to Exodus 43, right? Okay, we're gonna pick up at 44. It says, "But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then he shall eat of it." Now, this is gonna, it could be, really kind of puzzling a little bit if you don't understand. We pray Yahweh give us the spiritual insight to understand these scriptures, right? So now remember, this is talking about, the law of the circumcision. Let's go ahead and get that right quick, because I want to bring this out. Let's go to Genesis 14. This is the law of the circumcision here, but we got to understand the context to be able to understand the narrative. Okay, so this is going to be Genesis 17 and 12, right? We got to understand this, okay? Genesis 17:12, it says, "And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generation, he that is born in thy house, or bought with money of any stranger," it says there, which is not of thy seed. So in other words, even though the Edomites or Moabites were bought with money, they had to be circumcised. However, they couldn't eat of the Passover. Remember, the Passover is only for Israel. Okay, so we understand that context. Okay, right? We understand that context. So now let's go back over to understand. Right? Here, let's bring out another aspect here. Right? So those Moabites, those Edomites were bought with money. Yes, they had to be circumcised, but they could not eat of that Passover. We saw that earlier over in Genesis chapter 12 and 44, I think it was. Okay, let's go to Numbers 9. Let's go to Numbers 9 and 14. Let's go to Numbers 9 and 14, because we got to understand this, right? Right? It says, Numbers 9:14, it says, and if a stranger should join among you, and will keep the Passover. This is going to be talking about Israelite strangers, and will keep the Passover of Yahweh according to the ordinance of the Passover, according to the manner thereof. So shall he do. Ye shall have one inheritance. See the one inheritance right there? This is both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. So we're going to see that this stranger is going to be Gar. Watch it. Let's get it. Okay. Yep, here it is. See it?
Strong's H 16:16. Gar. Gar. And the form just below that, Gair. Gair.
So we see that these Israelite strangers are in fact of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yes, sir. And ma'am, ladies. Right. So we understand this context. Right. So now let's go back over to Exodus 12. Because we had to bring these precepts out, because we're going to get those naysayers to say, well, how come you didn't bring it out? So we brought it out in clarity, if Yahweh say the same, to understand what the precepts are referring to. Now let's go back over to Exodus 12, see, and 44. Right. Exodus 12:44 says, "But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof." Look at 45, right? It says, "A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof." See that? So even though, these foreigners and these hired servants, they are amongst us, they still cannot eat of that Passover, right? Now, if they live in a house or they come under a banner like that, they have to be circumcised. However, they cannot eat of that Passover. That's what that's talking about, okay? Let's jump down to 47. It says, all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised. And then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Look, see that? Let's go get that stranger again. You know what it's going to be? Exactly. Gar.
Strong's H 1616. Gar. Gar. And the form just below that, Ger. Ger.
Con. So we see that these strangers are Israelite strangers, right? Look at 49. It says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Let's see what 49. You already know what the stranger is going to be again. The stranger, right? It's going to be Gar again. Here it is again. Yasharala.
Strong's H 1616. Gar. Gar. And the form just below that, Ger. Ger.
Con. So we see that the Bible is consistently telling us that these strangers in Ezekiel chapter 47 are going to be Israelites by blood. Exodus 12:50 says, thus did all the children of Israel as Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. So we see that these people are in fact Israelites. Okay, let's go back over to Ezekiel 47. So now we pray, that Yahweh gave us the righteous understanding of understanding who these Gentiles are, or these strangers are, in Ezekiel chapter 47. These people are Israelites according to the flesh. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 47:23. It says, and it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourn, there shall ye give him his inheritance. We already read already. In addition of Esther, we're going to see it again. Saying who the inheritance is going to. The inheritance is only for Israel. Saith Yahweh Ba'asham. In fact, let's go over there. Let's go over to the edition of Esther. We're going to look at edition of Esther, chapter 5 and verse 5. It says, from my youth up I have heard in the tribe of my family that thou, O Yahweh, tookest Israel from among all people, and our fathers from all their predecessors, for a perpetual inheritance. Perpetual means forever, and thou hast performed whatsoever thou didst perform, promise them. Remember the promise? See? Right. And thou hast promised whatsoever thou didst promise them. Let's see what the promise is. Let's go over to, y'all know where I'm going. Let's go to Romans. Let's see what the promises are for. Let's go to Romans chapter 9, right? And 4. It says, let's start at verse 3. Romans 9:3. It says, for I could wish that myself were accursed from my Shekahawashah for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption, the glories, the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Yahweh, and the promises. There we just read that in addition of Esther, right? Who are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Mashiach Yahweh came, who is over all, Yahweh blessed forever. Amen. So I pray, that this mystery has been resolved in righteousness, and it's not a stumbling block in terms of understanding, but it is. In summary, we prove through the scriptures that those Israelites in Ezekiel chapter, or those strangers in Ezekiel chapter 47 are in fact Israelites. So once again, I want to give all glory, all honor, all praise to Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai. Shalom.